And welcome to On the Spot. My name is Ronnie Whiteley. To my left is two beautiful ladies from, well, I'll let you tell you who we're from, Paula Moore and Janette Steele. Paula, we've been talking for a while on Facebook about getting you on the show. Finally have you on the show for a good month and a half. Going to run to the end of the year. You are with?
STAND. STAND is a faith-based nonprofit organization that is in the developing stages, and what we do is we take a stand against domestic violence, bullying, and child abuse. We also help people that have lost loved ones to suicide. Right now we have a Stand Faith Facebook page. That way, if anybody in need needs help, they can message one of us on that page. We also have a cab service that helps in emergency domestic violence situations.
Oh, wow.
Jason Spears and I just spoke last week about going under their umbrella to get us legal and up and running. Our long-term goal is to open up an outreach center, a domestic violence shelter, an online helpline, and emergency evacuation team.
Wow. And Jason, of course, with the shelter here in town. We had him on the show not too long ago. So, Janette, it's in the early stages of existence. So it's the very beginning of this organization. What brought you along?
Me and Paula's been very good friends since elementary school.
Oh, wow.
And so she knows some of my history. And so she asked me to come on board as an educator against bullying. And I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to reach our communities. Eventually, hopefully, to see it even branch out maybe into Wayne County.
Oh, wow.
So,
well, maybe we can branch out even bigger than that.
It might.
So you talk about education. You're in education, correct?
Yes, I am.
And what do you do?
I am a manager at the Excel Center in Richmond.
Okay, yeah.
And I have taught for about 20 years in preschool education.
Oh, there you go. So now you're running the gambit of education, being up there at the Excel.
At the Excel, yes.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So, Paula, we've talked briefly a little bit about your history.
Yes.
You know, ideas like this come out from experience. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
I was 18 years old when I moved out of home, and as a lot of young adults think, we're in a hurry to move out of home.
Yeah.
Well, in my experience of being in a rush to move out of home, I rushed myself into a domestic violence situation. Through years of domestic violence, I was raped, beaten, and even put into a wheelchair at Community East Hospital and ordered 24/7 supervision and physical therapy. When I was released from Community Hospital, I was released to my domestic violent partner, and we lived in an upstairs apartment.
Oh.
It took me several months to be able to gain the strength to stand and to be able to leave that domestic violence situation. And that was in 1999.
Wow, so 21 years you've been free of that, but the abuse prior to that psychologically takes a huge toll.
Oh, yes. I suffered from depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety. I laid in the bed multiple days just crying, lost, felt alone, didn't feel like anybody cared. And then in a few years back, a elder at New Life Ministries, Brother Richard Hahn, had been helping my son, who was a minister at the time, and he had ended up at my home, Brother Hahn did. And he looked at me and he said, "Keep the faith." Ever since then, I've been doing my very best to keep the faith in the Lord.
Yeah. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
And in doing so, I felt a strong urge to do something to help others to overcome domestic violence, bullying, and even the loss of a loved one.
You talked about 1999 being freed, leaving, but you're never really free at that moment because of the psychological scars.
Exactly.
Other than, you know, Mr. Hahn coming to your house and saying keep the faith, where did you seek help at?
Me, I've been affiliated with multiple churches.
Yeah.
And working in customer service, I've been able to meet multiple people. They are very loving and encouraging people that I've met along the way. And there's been other victims that's reached out to me and said, hey, Paula, how'd you do it?
Oh, wow.
And in doing that, that helped build me back up.
Right.
And I'm still building.
Right.
It's not a process that, okay, I'm just not going to be depressed.
Or just get over it. I'm
yeah,
sure you probably heard people say
yeah.
that.
And you just don't get over things.
Yeah.
You have to build yourself back up, find yourself again, and to find what you believe in, whether it be the Lord, whatever your heart tells you that is right for you. And you got to find that strength to be able to stand and, hold your posture and not let nobody to knock you back down again.
Janette, you, as an educator from preschool to high school kids at the Excel Center, I'm sure you've seen abuse.
Yes.
I'm sure you've seen bullying.
Yes.
How does it affect you as an educator?
As an educator, we try to watch for the signs of bullying because a lot of times children will not come to you with the bullying. Right. They want to come to their parents. Even my daughter, I didn't know she was being bullied in junior high to the point of severity where she tried to commit suicide.
Yeah, and we've had a few kids here, unfortunately, in Fayette County.
That has tried and has
succeeded, yeah.
Yes, they have. And so with, as an educator, I've always tried to watch for the signs of that and stop it. And, we do help the bullying, the child that's been bullied, but I also think we need to help the bully.
Right.
Because there's obvious a reason why they're bullying.
Especially at that age.
Yes. And you don't see it a lot in preschool. You do see it a little bit. Now at the Excel Center, we have seen a lot of, fighting and bullying because it is the older age group. We have them from 16 to, they can come 100 if they want to get their high school diploma. But so we do see that, and we do monitor that very closely.
Wow, you would think that the more mature that they are, but it seems like it's the worst.
It's the worst. A lot of times, just a lot of
anger built
up.
And because whenever I was in middle school, every time I'd get on the bus, I would hear boom, bada boom, because I was a larger person. By the time I was in high school, I was so filled with anger towards the other students, the students that didn't help me, and the students that acted that way towards me.
Yeah.
If it wasn't the weight, it was the style of clothes that I wore or how my hair looked that day. There's so many reasons why people find to bully people.
And your self-esteem is shot.
Yeah. And I started becoming a bully. And thank the Lord, my older brother had brought it to my attention how I was being viewed in school. So I took a step back, and I didn't want to become what I was being hurt by.
Right. Mm-hmm. Do you see that in the schools?
Usually, some people. There's two types. There's one who will become a bully, and there's one who will stand against bullying. Like for me, I was bullied pretty much through elementary because I had a speech impediment. Yeah. I really had a hard time with a lot of my sounds and been able to articulate them. So as I got older and I'm able to, if I seen anybody being bullied, I would stand for them. Say, no, we're not doing this. And a lot of my friends, they would come to me and ask me to go have a talk with the person who's bullying them because they were being bullied so severe. Right. And then as an adult, I've even talked to friends that I went to school with that I did not realize that they was bullied in school. Right. And, it just really is heartbreaking that how many people really suffer underneath the hands of a bully, but they never express. And I've always said, if I always told my own children, I'm like, if you're being bullied, please come to me. Right. Because we will take care of it. I will teach you what to do in that situation. Yeah. And that's what I do with my students. Because a lot of times just sitting down talking it out and working your differences, because we all have differences. We all are different, and we all have uniqueness about us that we can bring, to the table. And a lot of times people are scared of what they don't know. So they lash out and pick on that child. And sometimes the child's been picked on by several people. It's not just one. It's like a group might gang up on them. Yeah. So we try to, bridge that gap and help that bully and help the ones who's been bullied. Right. So.
And I think that's the key is helping the bully to stop it. It's got to be nipped in the bud right there.
It does.
I work with a lot of kids in the career that I have. I work with kids who are middle school and high school aged, and some of them have been bullied. Mm-hmm. And I always encourage them to go to the principal, to whoever they need to go to, and explain the situation. And their response always is, nothing gets done, even if they've gone. Mm-hmm. it seems like the kids want to see something done. Yeah, the kid may get talked to the bully, but they're right back in the same situation. As educators, and I understand that, my kids would always, both of my kids do something wrong, or all three of my kids do something wrong at the same time, well, you're not getting on so-and-so as much as me. Well, that's between me and them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, that's what the educators tell the bullied child is that, well, we are disciplining them. Well, sometimes they want to see them be disciplined to feel safe. Mm-hmm. How are educators providing that safety with kids? Because you guys are still learning too.
I think if a child that has been bullied comes to you as an educator, mm-hmm. you should actually call a meeting with the bully and the child and have them sit down. Mm-hmm. And talk to them. Of course, if it's preschool age,
right.
It's right. easier.
Right.
But when you get into the older age groups, you can even, as an adult, I've had bosses that's bullied.
Oh yeah.
So he mm-hmm. can go all the way. They
yeah.
have not ever been taught to stop now.
Right.
And so they continue all the way through adulthood, bullying their employees.
Yeah.
And so it's a filter down effect. And if we don't stop it,
Yes, she's exactly right. Workplace bullying takes place so many times that people don't even realize.
Right.
A lot of people are mistaken at thinking that bullying's just taking place in schools.
Right.
No, bullying takes place
of all ages.
At all ages.
Yeah.
When we're adults, when we're at work, even if we go to the grocery store. And even the other day, I was driving, and I had somebody tailgating me.
Probably me. No, I'm just kidding.
Even road rage is a type of bullying.
People who know me are laughing. I'm a nice one. I don't use any extremities or anything like that. But you're absolutely right about that. Absolutely right. And there's times where I've been not nice behind the wheel. When you talk about the adults in the workplace and mm-hmm. the kids that are even older in school, the typical way to handle it as we adults, stop, you two handle it. That's probably not the best way to handle it.
No, the boss, actually the supervisor, the director, or the principal, if mm-hmm. it's in the school system, mm-hmm. which I've never had much in the school system.
Right.
But, they need to take both of them and settle that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times they don't know what's going on.
Right.
It's, so they don't know that's taking place. And sometimes it is the leader that's doing it. So,
exactly right. And that makes it even worse. Mm-hmm. Paula, you experienced domestic violence at such a young age.
Yes.
You were still a teenager, just a little girl.
Yes.
Obviously, you had some of the bullying at school, but when you're an adult, you don't think that stuff would
carry on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I won't mention her name, but there was an article I had read on Facebook, and the lady was talking about her daughter and about how these individuals was bullies. And for 10 years, I was bullied every day as an adult. I'm a coffee drinker.
Yeah.
And the first thing I like to do when I wake up in the morning is to make up. A lot of times, first thing in the morning, when I went to drink that cup of coffee, I would have somebody screaming in my face, the partner I was with at the time. And I never so much looked at him as a bully until I read that article on Facebook.
Wow.
And
you had been broken away from him for how long?
I was away from him at that point. It wasn't the same person that I was with in '99. It was somebody later.
Oh, wow. So the pattern kept repeating.
Yeah, he didn't do the physical violence. Yeah. It was more of the verbal violence. Yeah. And physical violence, yes, it's horrible. Yeah. But the verbal and the mental violence, in my opinion, is 10 times worse.
Yeah.
It leaves more scars that are harder to heal than what a black eye is.
Right, right. We talked before we got on the air, and the typical way to handle things, as if your kid gets bullied, knock them out.
Yeah.
You stand right up to them and you blast them, and they'll stop bullying you. How effective is that?
Sometimes it is effective. I think you have to make a stand against the bully, because if you don't, they will continue to do it. But some kids don't have maybe the inner strength to stand against that bully. Yeah. So maybe they're more introverted, and they go home and Next thing you know, you have your child that's committed suicide.
Right.
Not everybody is strong enough to stand against a bully, and if they don't think there's help, then they feel like there's no hope. And that's what, on the stand, that's what we want to give them, is hope through the Lord, because I know from my own strength comes from God.
Yeah.
And that's the only person who's ever been able to give me strength.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Amen. Absolutely agree with that. So, and I absolutely, totally agree with that. There was a famous, famous video of a kid, I think he was in Australia, a bigger kid being bullied by some young kid, and the kid's showing off, hitting the big kid, until the big kid picked him up and slammed him. Broke his leg. Kid got up, kept limping. That kid never bullied him again.
No.
After that, we don't want that extreme. But sometimes, even after a conversation, and I'm sure you probably, with your domestic violence, somebody, I'll change.
Oh, yes.
I'll change.
Yes.
And it never does. And then the bullying takes a more of a psychological turn, even more sinister, behind the teacher's back. Then the kid feels more helpless. You feel more helpless as an adult.
The one piece of advice my mother gave me before I moved out of home at 18 years old was that if I ever found myself in a domestic violence situation and the perpetrator had beat me, and then afterwards, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Don't believe them.
Right.
Because 9 times out of 10, they will do it again.
Right.
And the more that you forgive, the worse they will become.
Right.
Because
you're enabling.
Yes, you're letting them know, I'll forgive you no matter what you do to me.
Right.
To me, the Lord is love. Love is not anger.
Right.
It's not violence.
2 Corinthians 13, read it. Or 1 Corinthians 13.
Love is not hatred, jealousy, envy. It's none of those things. And a lot of people today believe, oh, I believe in the Lord. It's wrong of me to leave my violent partner.
The unbelieving spouse leaves.
It's wrong of a person to be married and not actually have love in their marriage.
Right. I agree.
agree.
And I've a lady, she's no longer here. She's gone to heaven. That I used to work with down at the Lord's table. She, wonderful cook, looked just like Cher. Beautiful lady. Her name was Marcy, and she was telling me how she was victim of domestic violence, and she had mentioned that her pastor said, "Leave." And she goes, "That's all I needed," because she thought that, well, I'm married, I need to stay, and two ways to get divorced: cheating, and if the unbelieving spouse leaves. And I would think beating on someone would mean that the unbelieving spouse is already gone. Yeah. I don't think God wants you to live that way.
No.
And so I think you'll find that strength there, but sometimes it's not always the first time.
Yeah.
It's not always the first time. I'm sure now, 20-something years later, and after you've been freed from it all, you look back and go, what was I thinking?
Yes, there are moments, and a lot of people that have left domestic violent relationships refer to themselves as being stupid or naive or gullible. That's not the case.
Word strength comes to mind if you've made it.
Yes, I have a huge heart. And that's why I stayed for the period of time that I did.
Yeah.
I had put my heart too far out there and didn't look at my own safety at times that I needed to.
Yeah. Wow.
And in doing so, that influenced my daughter and my son. My daughter ended up in a domestic violent marriage for 7 years. My son became a domestic violent person and has been incarcerated for domestic violence. Praise goes to Jesus. He had wrote me a letter a couple months ago, not knowing that I'm doing the stand, and said, "Mom, I don't know what did it, but I know what I've done, but whenever I get out, I want to do something to stand against domestic violence."
Good for him.
So
Good for him.
when people look, a lot of times when you're in domestic violent relationships, you're looking at what you're going through,
Right.
and you're often too afraid are too traumatized by what you're going through to look at the people around you and what they're going through as well.
You know, you brought up a very good point, and it goes back to what you mentioned earlier, Janet. What causes someone to be a bully? Whether it's their psychological makeup or what they're witnessing. And you mentioned that your daughter came in one because that's all she, and how much, I guess it goes back to, you got to be freed, but you got to forgive yourself too.
Yes, definitely.
Because I'm sure you thought, I stayed too long.
Yep.
I stayed too long.
Yep.
That's a process too in of itself.
Oh, yes.
That you got to forgive yourself.
Yes.
Even though you're the victim in all this.
Yes.
It's, and you know, certainly to goodness, we're not, but your domestic violence partner spilled it upon his children too.
Yes.
Where your daughter thought that, well, I think I need to be in one of those relationships, and your son thought I needed to be that way.
Yes.
But you, as a survivor, I'm sure forgiveness was hard.
Oh, yes. I held so much responsibility, like you said, because of staying in domestic relationships. I felt, oh, my Lord, what did I teach my son? What did I teach my daughter?
Right.
But praise the God again.
Yeah.
Whenever we did a domestic violence awareness event at the Roberts Park, my daughter had actually went to that. The very evening after that was over, she left the domestic violent relationship and has not looked back.
Good for her.
So,
Good for her. Good for her. And it takes, again, that strength. But back then, when you're in the midst of it all, I mean, there's nobody can help me.
yes.
But there is now. Here with Stan, there is help.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And now we're going into the schools. And how much are you implementing? Because you're in Wayne County.
Yes, I am.
That's where you teach, but you're from here in
Yes.
Connersville. How much are you implementing it where you're at?
At this point, we're trying to get into the schools.
Yeah.
We do have the administration on board in Rushville.
Yes.
But
Oh, good.
with us being faith-based, I don't know how we're going to interact with the schools yet.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they won't let faith-based.
Right.
But we're hoping that what I would like to see happen is the person who bullies, I would like to see the school to be able to help them.
Right.
And as we're helping the one who's being bullied, maybe they could help them by putting them into a program with either Meridian or Centerstone or some outreach they have that maybe give them counseling on the appropriate behavior that they should be.
Yeah, I work at CMHC, Community Mental Health down in Brookville, Franklin
Okay.
County. So yeah, I would love to get some information to pass on down there, because I see some of the kids that are being bullied and they need an outreach as well.
Yes.
Everybody, as you mentioned, Paula, in the very beginning, hope. Hope is the cure. Somebody mentioned hope. That is the key. We need to provide hope. You had to have that hope somewhere. Your daughter had to have that hope.
Yes.
Your son has to have that hope that,
Yes.
hey, I can end the cycle.
Yes.
From the perspective of
Okay, yeah.
being the bullier, your son can have. He's got that. Okay, now I'm breaking it. Now I want to
Yeah.
help other people.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. It's about giving out. How can someone, as we get ready to watch a video that you guys have, let's set this video up. We're going to watch a video, minute 45-second video. Explain to me this video that we're going to watch.
This video pretty much gives you an idea of what Stand is about. It, like Janette had spoke earlier about hope, and like you had also mentioned, in the video you will see children getting bullied, and then you'll see where smiles come later. And it also will explain a little bit more about what domestic violence is and what bullying is as well.
It's not just, it's the parents who need to be educated to watch the signs
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
and how to appropriately handle it,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah. They,
Because a lot of times my thing is, oh, you nail them until it's time. But also we can always, just ignore them. Sometimes that's not the case too.
No.
They need hope and they need hope and some outreach as well. We're going to watch this video and we'll come back and discuss it more. Very powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, very powerful. Who made that?
I did.
You did great.
Yes.
Good for you.
I
Good for
make
you.
all the videos for stands.
Oh, good.
My daughter, who is an overcomer of
Yeah.
domestic violence now, she also assists us with
Yeah.
making the videos. We have an artist, Kenneth Gillen, who has also helped with a lot of the artwork that Stan does, even our shirt designs. There is 10 different people that is on the Stan team right at this moment. Everybody from ministers to educators to secretaries, public workers. There's all kinds of people involved now.
Yeah.
And you was mentioning earlier about the school administrator out of Rush County. He's planning to attend the bullying support group in Rush County.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You have one there, too.
Yes, we are going to be starting support groups looking at December, if COVID allows it.
Right, yeah, right. Yeah,
December the 1st, it's on a Tuesday at 6 p.m. at Main Street Christian Church.
yeah.
Every Tuesday afterwards, there will also be bullying or other types of support groups. We have a faith-based support group, a bullying support group, a domestic violence support
wow.
group, and a suicide survivor support group. And one thing that the administrator did mention on bullying with the schools is that every school has an internet site that you can go to that you can report bullying to. And they will respond to you once they receive that information from you.
You guys are expanded. As we get ready to close, and I told you it goes by quick, as we get ready to close, how, and I know with COVID right now, some of the meetings here at Fayette County, but how can people here in Fayette County get involved?
The shelter, Jason Spears, has just put us under his umbrella. And we're going to be getting a sub-account at the bank with him. Donations would be greatly appreciated, not just towards the stand, but the shelter as well.
That's right.
They're trying to purchase property. That way they can expand the shelter for the homeless, which is also very well needed. The stand, like I said earlier, we are trying to get an outreach center and a domestic violence shelter. So we're also trying to get funds to do that. And if you're personally wanting to be on the stand team and feel like it's something that you're either educated to do or have the experience to do, hit me up. Paula Moore on Facebook.
Yeah, Moore.
Correct.
On Facebook. We got the Stand Facebook page.
Stand
that they'll be-
Faith.
Yeah, that they'll be able to check that out. Jeanette, thank you very much for coming on the show and
Thank you
offering
for
your
having us.
educational. Paula, always, I'm a very big fan of this, and
Thank you.
Please come back, and hopefully we'll have you back on and talk more and have a lot more involvement from the community. That's Paula Moore, Janette Steele from the Stand. We'll see you next year on the on the spot.